Call to order. Thank you. Welcome to the Laramie City Council work session for Tuesday, January 27, 2026. And we will begin tonight's work session with public comment on non-agenda items. And I have Ms. Janelle Gaddis signed up to speak. Ms. Gaddis, please come to the podium. Welcome.
Hello. I came before the City Council in last year, August 19th, on this tax lien sale property that I had acquired. And after talking with you, I did receive a notice from the city attorney, Mr. Southard. He stated that he felt the city was not at fault, but they would be willing to buy this property back from me for the taxes and expenses I had incurred, but not willing to pay any of the interest that I would be entitled to according to, the Wyoming state statute, Title 39, the one on taxation and revenue. I find kind of interesting in this statement that the city was not at fault, because after I acquired the tax deed and then went to city planning to see if I could build on this residential property that I bought, I was told it was an unbuildable lot. But very interesting, after all of this, the very next year, I received a tax notice that it was now vacant land and reduced the taxes to $22 or under $25 a year. So I don't know who changed all of this, if it wasn't the city. So on 9/22 of 25, after I received that email, I did send him the expenses along with the interest due, because I felt I was entitled to that. And I did not hear back from him. So on January 5th of this year, I sent him another email, and I CC'd council members. And again, I have not heard back. So I know this property was owned by Marino LLC, declared bankruptcy sometime 2015 or 16. Somehow the HOA was never formed as it was supposed to have been, and the HOA would have been paying the property on this tax, and that therefore it would never went to a tax lien sale if it had been done. So again, not hearing back from anybody after January 5th, I did contact the city planning again to see if somehow the lot could be a buildable lot. This would add a value of, say, $3,000 to $5,000 in tax revenue to the city and the county. But I was told by city planning that they could not talk to me about it. So I don't know if because the city attorney was involved or why. So I guess if the city does not think this, they are maybe together with a resolved joint meeting with the county. Somebody has made a mistake of listing it in the 2017 tax lien sale. It's not my fault, and I just feel I should be able to be reimbursed if I cannot build on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaddis. Are there any other public comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we will begin our first work session, our only work session, and that is the WYDOT State Transportation Improvement Plan. And good evening, Mr. Tarango.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to thank the City Council and the county commissioners for having me here tonight, for setting up this meeting specifically for us to do that. I think it's pretty amazing, the relationship that we have with the city and the county. It's always been a really great relationship that we've had. I think we've worked really close together, and we want to continue to do that. First thing I want to talk to you guys about is You know, we know that the roads that we build and the infrastructure that we do affects everybody in Wyoming every day of their life, whether it's the roads they drive on or the airports they fly out of, or even our transit system. So I'm the district engineer for Southeast Wyoming. I cover Carbon, Albany, and Laramie counties. And Brent Lyman's one of 7 county commissioners, and he is part of Albany County, Carbon County, and Sweetwater County. And the commissioner are the ones that approved the STIP that we're about to talk about today. I'll take you through the STIP and how it's developed and the inputs we get to develop the STIP so we can get the best bang for our buck for the citizens of Wyoming. So these are the guys over in Cheyenne. They oversee the whole state and give us guidance on what we need to do to do the STIP and to make sure we maintain our assets. Darren Westby's the director. I think he'll be coming on his 3rd year as director in March. Keith Fulton, he's the chief engineer. And Brian Olson's assistant chief engineer of engineering and planning. Mark Ayen, my supervisor, is assistant chief engineer of operations. And then John Davis is the management services manager, and he has all the grant information that we have. One thing I do want to mention too is Keith, Brian, and Mark have always all been in their position for less than a year now. We've had quite a bit of turnover in our executive team. And these guys are the ones that keep me out of trouble. They're my district staff. We have a few of them over here. Tim Morton, he's our district maintenance engineer. He has 12 crews throughout the state or the district, and he's in charge of all the snow plowing, all the maintenance activities like filling potholes, fixing fence, fixing bridges, guardrail. And Ryan Shields is our district construction engineer, and he'll be up here a little bit later to get in the specifics of the projects. But he manages about $60 million worth of projects a year in District 1. And he has 6 resident engineers located throughout the district. And of course, Michael Simmons, we consider him a part of our district staff also. He's the highway patrol captain. We work really closely with the highway patrol, especially when there's incidents out on the interstate. Roy Summers, our district equipment supervisor, he has 4 crews throughout the district. And without him, we couldn't do our job because he keeps our fleet running. Not only does he have the district fleet, but he also has headquarters fleet also. Taylor McCord, our district traffic engineer, he also has 4 crews, and they're the ones that do all the striping. They maintain about 100 signals throughout the district. They do our crosswalks, and they also, he looks at all the development reviews to make sure that our system isn't being effective, does access permits, and a bunch more. And then last but not least is Jackson Penfield. She is our public relations specialist. And she's pretty much our first point of contact when we have concerns out there. And another thing that WYDOT thinks is really important is to inform, the public when we're going to affect them out there and when we're going to inconvenience them, because we know we're going to inconvenience them. But it's always good to get ahead of the game and let them know ahead of time and then work them through the process. So these are the boots on the ground here in Laramie. So we have 2 resident engineers in Laramie, Steve Cook and Corey Kramer. A lot of you guys might know that Corey Kramer ran the 3rd Street project, and he did an excellent job with that. And Steve's been around a long time, and he does a great job. Eric Anderson's our area maintenance supervisor, and he has 2 foremen under him. Rich Barber, who is the Laramie I-80 East foreman, and Chad Sanderson, the I-80 West foreman. So really, this is the core of what we want to do. And this is kind of our base of what we do and why we do it. Basically, our vision, is where we want to go, is excellence in transportation. And our mission is basically what we do, provide a safe and effective transportation system. And how we want to get there is through this acronym RIDES: respect, integrity, dedication, excellence, and safety. And this really is the core of what we do and how we want to build our transportation system, and it helps us build our STIP. One of the most important things and one of the most important assets that we have is our people. And so one of our focuses is to recruit, recognize, and retain our employees. We want to make it the best place that we can for our employees to work. We have a lot of turnover in YDOT, especially on our maintenance side. As you guys know, we can't really dictate if we can get raises or not. That's a legislative issue, and we always have to reinforce that with our employees. Secure additional funding. Right now, YDOT has been in preservation mode for as long as I can remember, well, since the 90s. And so if we don't secure additional funding, it's going to be hard for us to maintain our roads. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit further. And these 6 strategic objectives kind of falls in lines with building the brand. So we want to serve our customer, and we want to make sure we have transparency and public engagement. Is what we're doing right now. And I already talked about value our team, but we also want to maintain strategic partnerships like we're doing with the county and the city. So YDOT has several different assets, like a large assets to maintain and operate. We have 16,000 lane miles of roads, 6,000 bridges and structures. Now the structures that I'm talking about are like the high mast lighting and retaining walls. And then if you see them big overhead structures that have signs on them are the structures I'm talking about. We have 42,200 culverts, 8,000 miles of guardrail, 80,000 signs, and 12,000 miles of fence. So this year we're planning on letting to construction over $400 million in projects. And as you can see down below on the slide, Wyoming is about 30% state funded and 70% federal funded. The national average is flip-flopped. We have about 70% state funded and 30% federal funded. And I guess why that is important to YDOT and to the citizens of Wyoming, I think, is that so YDOT is what's considered a donee state. That means the revenue that we send to the federal government from sales, from fuel taxes and stuff like that, we get actually back more money than we send to the federal government. So there's other states, the bigger states like New York, California, Texas, that are donor states. So they actually pay in to get distributed to other states more money than they get back. And the federal highway bill does expire at the end of this year, and we're fighting pretty hard to just keep that funding the same. So as you can see from this graph too, for the last 10 years, you can see that our revenue has been pretty stagnant while our buying power is declining over the years. So what does that mean? That means we can do less projects with the money we have. And we did, in the legislative session last year, they did pass that YDOT will get more money from the vehicle sales tax, and that'll generate about $64 million, which will help, with this graph a little bit. So this table here shows the funds that go to local communities. And I guess what I want to point out on this, you can see there's both state and federal funding that goes to local communities. And the total funds is about 53,000. But we have optional is about 36,000 or 37 million, sorry. That's about 70% that's optional. And I think that's really important, especially for cities and counties, because if you can look at the top, the state surface transportation urban areas, the type of projects that funds was like the Bill Nye Phase 1, and we're help funding Bill Nye Phase 2, and there's several other projects. So the USAC committee gets about $600,000 a year from the state, and they can accumulate that money to do projects within the urban boundary, which is defined by the Urban Systems Advisory Committee. And you can see there that all that money's optional. Another one for the county is the CMAQ, which says up there, I think it's congestion air quality projects. And that's $2.2 million. That's totally optional. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we are looking at strategies to maintain our system. And so that is some of the money that we're going to have to look at in order to maintain our system in the future. Do you guys have any questions on this table here before I continue. Go ahead, Micah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to be clear, looking at in the future, all of these optional funds that currently local municipalities and counties are benefiting from, those not being as readily available so that the state can have the funding they need for other projects. Is that, am I interpreting that correctly?
That's pretty accurate, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And that includes transit. Well, transit, I think, is required. So the required funds are required by law that we give them ones out. So this map is what YDOT calls the red-blue map. And this is kind of the same concept. So the blue roads are NHS, National Highway System roads, and the red ones are non-NHS roads. And you can kind of see the projects on there, and Ryan has a slide later in his presentation that shows how much money we have going to the, what happened?
Sorry.
Oh.
I moved the words so they could see the bottom of that.
And so we're going to have to prioritize the National Highway System if we don't get additional money. And then obviously we'll do the non-NHS roads when money becomes available, but that's another strategy that we are looking at. So basically what's in our STIP is we have the highway projects, basically all the construction jobs that you see out on our highway, the mills and overlays, the bridge rehabs, the bridge replacements, the widenings and overlays and stuff like that. And then our transit projects is basically our bus routes and the facilities for transit. Aeronautics, them are basically our runways. And then the aeronautics facilities that go along with our runways. And then the public safety communications is emergency communications. And the capital improvement projects are basically all our state buildings, not all the YDOT buildings, not state buildings. Thanks. So as you can see here, aeronautics supports planning and construction projects for approximately 40 public use locally owned airports. And on our emergency communications, so that's what's called WildLink, and all emergency services use that, not just YDOT. And as you can see there too, there's no upcoming WildLink projects on our current STIP. And one thing that's kind of surprising to some people is YDOT owns and maintains over 475 buildings throughout the state. And we have no upcoming capital improvement projects in the current STIP. So one question that we usually get is, how do we determine where the money goes? Well, first of all, we have to have a budget, right? And we have to stay within that budget, which includes both federal and state dollars. And then what we do is we use our asset management systems to distribute that money throughout the districts, throughout the 5 districts. And this is just for construction projects. Well, it's probably for all the projects. One thing to think about is it's really not evenly distributed. We use the management systems and input like we're doing now to select them projects and to build our budget. And then one thing I think that's really important on that last bullet point is that we make sure that we spend all the federal money that's coming into us. So we have to make sure we have that money to match the federal money that's coming in, so we're good stewards of the money that we do get. So this is kind of the whole process here. And so the first thing we do is we get STIP inputs through our different management systems. So we have a pavement management system that our materials program in Cheyenne, they're the ones that kind of manage that. And what they do is they go out and basically look at the deterioration of the roads, you know, rut depth, cracks, skid resistance and stuff like that. And then we have a bridge management system also that looks at the surface of the deck, the substructures, you know, the girders and all that kind of stuff to see where we're at with that. And they all have a rating system. And then another thing that our planning department does is we look at all the safety issues that we have. And mainly for safety issues, we look at crashes, fatalities, and things that we think that we can put something out there to improve. We know that most of our crashes are human error, but there is things out there like rumble strips that we can prevent accidents from happening, that wake people up, and guardrails that prevent them from going off into steep embankments and stuff like that. And so them are kind of the management systems that we use. Another big factor that we're running into lately, and it's mainly in Laramie County, is developments. So we have all these developments coming in, and we're trying to, be partners with the private industry and with Cheyenne Leads and stuff like that to try to see if they can help us out with that. But sometimes it's not just them that's breaking the system where we're at. Sometimes it's external factors too. And so when we take away money to correct them deficiencies, we have to pull it from something else. Another big input that we have is we have a long range plan every year that we get together our resident engineers and all our maintenance foremen. And really that's invaluable information that we get from them, because they're the boots on the ground, and they know what their road sections are like and which road sections they need done, what bridges need done, which pipes need fixed. And so we do use them guys quite a bit. So we do have them meetings yearly to get their input also. And then right now we're at the public and stakeholder input. And to me, this is one of the most important things that we can get from you guys, is getting input from the public and from you all on what you think your priorities are. And then Ryan basically gets all these inputs from everybody, and he puts the STIP together. He puts we call them pick projects in there. We have to look at several different things. We have to look at location, how it's going to affect other projects. We have to look at what bridges need rehabilitated, and we want to make sure that we put them in our overlay projects so that we're not going back the next year. We look at all these different things, we get all together, and then we come up with a draft STIP. And then what we do is we publish that draft STIP, and then we have more public comment. People can comment on the draft STIP before we take it to the commission in September. And then in September, the commission approves it, and then we finally publish it in October. I just want to put this slide up here just so you know where we have some more funding opportunities. Like it says up there, public transit is primarily provided for senior centers within the state, and the deadline for that for applications is March 1st through April 15th, and then we have the contact Randy Miller as our local government program manager. And then you can maybe scan that code, but not with the black thing on there, and that'll take you to our grants page that shows us what grants are available for local governments. And that is all I had, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Shields, unless you guys have any questions on how we develop a STIP.
Councilors, any questions? Commissioners? I see none.
All right, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
See if I can drive this thing. All right. Yep. Members of the City Council, County Commissioners, thank you. My name is Ryan Shields. I'm the District Construction Engineer for WYDOT District 1. Does it go up this time? Last time it didn't. All right. Well, I'll try to speak loudly. So I'm the District Construction Engineer for Southeast Wyoming. As Ralph said, I'll kind of give you a little more information on the STIP, touch on the projects that we have programmed for the next 6 years. And then most importantly, we're hoping to get some feedback and some input from you. Where should we be looking? What projects are we missing? What are you hearing from your constituents? We at WYDOT, we build and maintain public infrastructure. So if we don't get that feedback, that input, and kind of close that feedback loop, we're really missing the mark. So it's worked in Albany County from these presentations in the past. I can tell you this last year we built 2 turn lanes, one at the airport and one down south on US 287. That was a project that really came from input that we heard at these meetings. Now, it was a safety project, so we of course have to make sure that the need is there, but that's what put it on the radar. That's what really made us look at that. So, you know, that's an example of kind of what we're after tonight. If you go to the YDOT website, here's a web page that we have published showing the STIP. It's an interactive map. All of the pins on that map represent a YDOT project. You can click on it. Each one of those, it gives you information on the project, you know, budget, the type of work, what resident engineer is running it, their contact information. There's a comment field to leave comments. And then also there's a field, you know, if we don't have a project programmed, you know, you can suggest one there too. So it's a pretty powerful, you know, web-based tool that we kind of solicit input from. So if you go and look at the STIP, it's a big PDF organized by county. When you thumb through and find Albany County, this is what you'll see. There's a map of the county showing, you know, where the projects are located, with a table, you know, with all the super exciting information. I'm sure that everyone has a chance to read. And then kind of a budget breakdown of, you know, by year, what we plan to spend in the county, you know, in terms of highway projects, transit projects, airport projects, that kind of thing. So all that information is out there. Bear in mind, it's a snapshot in time. So like Ralph said, every year we go through this exercise of rebalancing the STIP and re-examining priorities. You know, so we get all of our new asset management data and look at that, you know, what roads have deteriorated more or less. You know, we take that opportunity to prioritize that. If, you know, we put highway projects in 6 years before they're built. So 3 years on, if that road section is falling apart more quickly than we thought, we have that opportunity to bring it forward and address it quickly, or move it back if it's doing better. So we really, you know, want to get to the road or bridge at the right time. And that's kind of part of that rebalance process. I think it's instructive to kind of understand where our construction dollars in District 1 go. So this is just a breakdown of District 1. This isn't a statewide outlook, and it's kind of a running average of the last 5 years. But, you know, on the left, the most striking thing is, you know, about 60% of our total funding is going to the interstates in District 1. So mostly I-80. We have a little bit of, you know, I-25 over in Laramie County. But obviously, you know, that's where we have the highest traffic volumes. Of those high volumes, half of them are heavy trucks, you know, so a lot of wear and tear, a lot of depreciating assets on the interstate that we just frankly can't afford to fall behind on. We try to get to our interstate segments about every 10 to 12 years, because if we find that if we wait longer, we get into trouble. As Ralph said, we're in a pavement preservation outlook, and we have been, especially in District 1, we've been doing it longer than the state philosophy has. But the philosophy there is to, you know, do more smaller projects to keep our assets at a certain level, not let them deteriorate to the point where we're tearing it down to the studs, essentially. And for the foreseeable future, I see us continuing with that, you know, for a few different reasons. One, you know, that's really all we can afford right now with our funding outlook. And two, on kind of a more optimistic note, I would say for the majority of our road sections and bridges, that is the most prudent use of our funds. You know, I think the majority of our assets are still able to be preserved and maintained. So, you know, I think we can continue to do that for the majority. The risk that I see on the horizon are a handful of road sections or bridges where we've maybe reached that point of diminishing returns, where, you know, we can still go do an overlay or a bridge rehab project, but that repair is not going to last because the bones, you know, of that road or that bridge just have deteriorated to the point where it's not a good use of our funds from a life cycle perspective. So I think that's what we're facing on the horizon. And that'll get really challenging and kind of turn into a vicious cycle. If we're spending $30 million on 10 miles of I-80, that's 2/3 of our budget for a year, right? We still have 190 miles of just interstate to take care of, let alone all the, you know, secondary highways that Ralph showed you. So I think where Commissioner Gozar, you've asked this question a few times over the years, is what's our plan looking forward? I think we're starting to strategize and wrap our arms around that. And I can give some examples later in the presentation, but it's something that that's front of mind and we're thinking about. So the interstate's definitely a beast. The remainder of our funding is more or less evenly split between our rural highways, which, you know, are no less important. I will say that, you know, the projects that we've had to move back based on priority, you know, the rural highways, our Wyoming 130s, those type of things, those are the ones we push back. And it's not something where we can afford to take our eye off the ball there either. You know, I had heard recently that tourism was like the #2 industry in Wyoming now, right? Past our extractive industries. Living in Laramie, we all appreciate the roads are necessary to get people out there snowmobiling, fishing, hunting, all of that, right? So if we want people to come to the state and keep coming back, we want the roads to support that. So, you know, a priority we can't afford to let fall off. And then the remainder are our urban projects. You know, 3rd Street here in Laramie was a great example. That was a great project. I want to thank Todd and the city staff. They were excellent partners through all of that. One of the hardest places to do a project and work. So we really put a lot of effort into that. I think we made a lot of people happy. There's some that we struggled with, you know, some situations, but on the whole, it was a successful project and we're happy about it. But those are difficult projects. They tend to be fairly expensive projects, but ones that we recognize the need to make sure we do the roads in our communities. So a lot of competing priorities. That's kind of, you know, one of the challenging parts of developing this dip every year. And then on the right, it just kind of gives you a simple breakdown of our expenditures in terms of pavement and bridge. So I'll just kind of go through what we have on the books right now, the next 6 years. So 2026, that's this coming summer. The first project up there is US 287 south of Laramie. So what that is widening the 2-lane highway that's there now to a 5-lane. It starts right about Huron Street where the 5-lane ends, and we'll go about 2.5 miles south to City Ranch Road, which is the main approach to the Paddock subdivision. So left turn lane throughout, 2 lanes each way. I just got done telling you we don't do projects unless they're preservation. This one is an exception. Anytime there's, you know, a critical life safety issue, that's always at the top. And this is a project where, you know, we believed in it. We all know the safety record down there. Ralph, you know, fought and advocated to get it back in the STIP and was able to convince them. So we're happy to get there and do it. We really think it'll make a big difference down there. We have another urban project on Grand Avenue this summer. So it'll go from 30th Street at the McDonald's and then go all the way out to I-80. In terms of scope, it's a lot less than what we did on 3rd Street. So it'll just be an overlay primarily, really minor bridge work at that bridge by the Comfort Inn, I think it is. All the ADAs are already up to snuff. There's no signal work. It'll be a much quicker project. So Knife River is our contractor on that one. As soon as we get a schedule from them, we'll look to partner with them to put on a public meeting to try to get the businesses, the residents on that side of town together and communicate our plan for that project. We have a small bridge replacement on US 30 north of town here. We're just replacing a small bridge with a box culvert, fairly minor. We'll maintain 2-way traffic the whole time. It won't be a situation where we have a big detour like we had last summer. Should be a quick project. And then the last bullet point up there is the Bill Nye Avenue Phase 2 extension. So that's a City of Laramie project, a USAC project that Ralph referred to. I have it in this fiscal year. I'm not optimistic that we're going to be building it this coming summer. There's still some issues with right-of-way and things to work through. I was in a meeting today with city staff and some of the the landowners, a lot of good momentum. I feel optimistic about moving forward with that. So we're here to partner with the city to get that thing over the finish line. We want to get it done too. In 2027, we have 2 bridge replacements on I-80. That's up on top of the summit at the Blair Wallace Road. So those are 2 bridges where we've rehabbed them so many times, it makes no sense to do anymore. Kind of one of those we've reached the point of diminishing returns. The existing bridges are kind of the small concrete ones that were built with the interstate. Back in the day when they built it, you look at those old bridge plans, it was like 3 sheets and tables of numbers, because it was kind of an assembly line mentality. You know, they built it all at the same time, which is great, except for the fact they're wearing out at the same time now. But so one of the kind of innovative things we've tried to do is to replace those structures. YDOT's come up with kind of a modern day version of that design, a short concrete span that's precast. It's kind of a bridge in a box thing. You know, the construction's very simplified as much as we can, and the cost to build one is pretty low. It's like $1.5 million a bridge, which is really good. So it's something that we've done that in Cheyenne as a test last summer, worked well, and it's something we're looking to repeat to replace a lot of these assets. We have a bridge repair on 287. That's the big railroad viaduct pictured there. That bridge doesn't seem that old, but we're getting on the 25, 30-year mark for that. So we're, you know, kind of doing some maintenance now before it gets out of hand. And then we have a big I-80 overlay project, our kind of bread and butter. That's the I-80 Laramie West section, 10 miles west of town here in the westbound lane. In 2028, we have the eastbound lane component of that project, that Laramie West project. So we'll do the opposite sister lane then. And then we'll be redoing Telephone Canyon again. I'm sure you're thinking we were just there. We were. We were this last summer, what you saw us doing, we repaved that 3rd lane, that climbing lane that all the trucks use. You wouldn't believe how fast that wears out. So that's what we were up there doing this last summer. What we have out there on I-80 in the summit is a thin asphalt overlay. It's fairly cheap to put down, but something we do have to get back and maintain quite often. So in 2028, we'll be there again. Unless it holds up, and then we'll push it back a year, right? In 2029, the first project up there is the Snowy Range Road project in West Laramie. That's a much needed overlay for sure. So we tried to overlay that a few years ago, took some cores in the road and found that it was way too far gone to just overlay it. So it'll be a more substantial project, a full depth reclamation project. We'll redo all the ADA corners throughout there. Want to thank the city for getting a project in there to do the utilities ahead of time. I think that's in the works right now. So another good example of us kind of coordinating and doing things in the right order. But that'll be another wonderful urban project. We'll do our best.
I have a question, Councillor Freed.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Just a quick question. Sorry to interrupt you. But on that Snowy Range Road, doing those cores, is there a reason that that road is, you know, different than what you guys were anticipating, or the wear of it is so significant in your mind?
Yeah, I think it was just it's just old. You know, we've overlaid it over the years. Our maintenance forces, we've done, you know, thin overlays. Again, it's just another example where the underlying structure has deteriorated to the point where it's just not going to hold up. And any money we spend to put an overlay on it is kind of a waste. So it'll be a good opportunity to reset the clock and have a road that we can be proud of for a long time.
And Councillor Lockhart.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Shields. I'm about to open a business on Snowy Range Road in about 2 weeks. How long does that project take to complete?
The Snowy Range one? I haven't been involved in a full depth reclamation one. Ralph might know a little better. It'll be quicker than 3rd Street, although we will have some of the same items like ADA corners, those type of things where we're doing concrete work at every intersection. as a business owner, we'll reach out and make sure that we're trying to do right by you and communicate the schedule and all of that. But it's hard for me to put a timeline on it. It'll be the better part of a summer for sure.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. A follow up on that. Just thinking about the layout of that road versus 3rd Street, which feels a little tighter on 3rd Street. I would assume there might be some more play to not have to close the entire thing down to allow traffic to kind of flow through a little bit more easily than it was on 3rd Street. Would that be correct or no?
There's some width to work with, maybe. You know, parts of 3rd Street were that 60-foot wide 5-lane section. That's what Snowy Range Road is. And the roadway work will be a little more involved. It won't just be paving. It'll be kind of getting into the subgrade. So I would anticipate just half at a time, and it'll feel a lot similar to 3rd Street.
Thank you.
That's one we're looking forward to as well. Don't worry. And then the other projects that year are all I-80 projects, the I-80 Grand Avenue section. So that goes from the 3rd Street interchange to the bottom of the summit. That'll be an overlay. We'll do some rehab work to the Grand Avenue interchange. And then two more of these bridge replacements that I was referring to out west of town at Dutton Creek Road. And I can't remember the county road number for that one, but yeah. 2030, right now, we don't have a lot of work shown. As we rebalance this dip going forward, I guarantee that will change. The one project in there is Wyoming 130. So between here and Centennial, it's kind of that middle third of that stretch. And then in 2031,
Councilor Newman.
The 2030, yeah, this one. Has there been discussion to add a turn lane to this when you guys do that? Because I know there's been a few crashes out there, and I know the families have reached out, but I don't know what that discussion looks like.
Gotcha. And I might need help with the locations. I'm trying to think where they were. I think I know which crashes you're talking about, and I don't remember if it's in this section or not. If there's an intersection that's needing that, whether it's based on safety or volume, we'll definitely look at it. That's definitely the time when we have a project there. So we'll circle up with Taylor and the team and everything and make sure that we're looking at those.
Thank you. Councilor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Shields. You may have already answered this, but one of the questions I had written earlier was about the pretty significant drop in spending in 30 and 31 versus the other. And is that a result of anticipated loss of revenue, or is it something more akin to, well, we have done this work so we can project a certain lifespan?
I would say it's more just balancing over the entire district. I'd have to look at what we have in Laramie County and Carbon these years. I know like in 2030, I think we have some substantial projects in Rawlins to replace part of the interstate. So I don't think it was a conscious decision to spend less here. And I really do expect that this will change as we rebalance the dip. It's not realistic for us to have one project here and spend our money everywhere else. So again, I think it's a snapshot in time, and we'll see different numbers on this slide next year.
Thank you.
2031 is very similar to your point. The first project there is on the extreme kind of west end of Albany County, Wyoming 13. So that goes from Rock River to Arlington. Part of Wyoming 13 does. So there's a bridge replacement and a bridge rehab there. And then the second bullet point on there, bridge replacement on 287 South. I'll kind of save that one for the next slide. Right now it's plugged into this year, but we're hoping something different happens with that one. So that's what we have on the books currently. Like Ralph said, we're in the process of doing that next dip rebalance. So when we get that, we'll be starting that process here in the spring. Looking forward, though, I wanted to talk about a few things in terms of future projects. So this is a big one we've been talking about for a long time. Again, US 287 south of Laramie. Laramie residents, we all know the history of that highway. And the safety record and the issues that we have. So what we were able to do, again, we believe in these projects. You know, Ralph was a big advocate. What we're looking at is getting the design of these corridors, or these design of these projects to complete that divided corridor all the way to Colorado. To at least there'd be 2 phases we need to do. We're at least going to get them designed and on the shelf and ready. So to be clear, there's no construction funding in this STIP to do them, but we want to be ready if that opportunity presents itself. So, you know, kudos to our executive staff for kind of looking forward at these type of things. You know, when I said, you know, we're starting to kind of maybe look beyond the pavement preservation sphere, this is, I think, is a great first step. So we will have them ready. Funding, no one can predict, but as county commissioners, city council, if you could throw your weight behind it, that would be stupendous. You know who to talk to. So,
And Councilor Freed, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Shields. Just curious, when you get designs created for a section without having the funding, which is very similar to counties and cities, how long are they good for? You know, if you do an assessment and a study, is that good for 5 years, 10 years, or could you describe that, please?
Just depends on what piece. So like the environmental parts that we do up front, this will be, you know, kind of an involved project that will be like an environmental assessment. Those have an expiration date, you know, and then the longer it sits on the shelf, just design standards, drift, move, change, you know. So I don't know if I can kind of give you a number for that, but it's something if it sits long enough, we know we have to dust it off and refresh some of those pieces. So yeah, this is one I'm really excited about. It'll be good for our people too. These are substantial design projects that we're not used to seeing. So from our standpoint as engineers, it'll be fun to design and to build someday. These are really, really cool projects. So, and again, ones that'll make a big difference. So that's what I have. Here's a bunch of contact information. It's all on the website as well. But again, you know, feedback and input is really what we need, I think, to do our jobs well. And we welcome that, even if it's, you know, positive feedback's always great, but we'll take whatever, you know.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. Today and yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I saw public service blip on Roku about 511.
Okay.
And I thought it was excellent. And so kudos to you guys on that. I thought that was very good. And
Thank you.
You didn't mention my 2 favorite projects.
Uh-oh. What did I forget?
And one is I-80 exchange at 3rd Street when you're coming westbound.
Okay.
That gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
So at the bottom of the ramp, you sit there and wait to turn left. Yeah, my wife says the same thing all the time. We've looked at things over the years for that. We have a really interesting roundabout drawn up that we've come and presented years ago. I don't know if that was the best idea. It's something we've looked at, right?
Right. Oh yeah, but we have to keep pushing the pressure, you know that.
Sure. We always look at signal warrants, you know. That would be a difficult area because the other ramp, the eastbound ramp, has its own set of issues as well. So, you know, I think anything we do at that interchange would kind of have to be a holistic type of thing.
It's a major, I mean, that's really major. And then the other is when you're exiting eastbound on Snowy Range Road to get on I-80, the angle of that approach.
You look over your shoulder.
Yeah, that's very difficult. And I hate to say it, this really makes me, the older I get, the harder that angle is to look.
Nope, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, the geometrics are kind of tough. I think we do have kind of a longer acceleration lane there for that reason. But
it's not longer, but yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still, those trucks come so fast and.
Okay. One thing I know that Taylor has in the works is a study he commissioned to look at the Snowy Range Road interchange And I think it's more down on the crossroad with the ramps in Adams Street and the proximity there. You know, I know when the tech school gets out, the traffic is, you know, an adventure. So I know that study's looking at that. You know, I don't know if the interchange is something we could look at too up on the main line, but we'll look.
Okay. I'm kind of a broken record on those two things. So
Okay. No,
thank you very
keep
much.
eyes on it.
Thank you. Councillor Shumway.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Shields, I didn't hear about a major project that we've heard about in the previous years of a $250 million project, the I-80, I-25 exchange.
Yeah.
Do you know when that may or may not, when it might start and where the funding will come from?
We did not put it in the presentation this year. It is still alive and moving forward. The last movement we had, we secured a federal grant to complete the bulk of the design for it. And then I think once we have that, we'll be looking for similar grants to help fund the construction. Now, the price tag on that thing, the last I heard was closer to 500 million. So you start looking at the federal, you know, mega project grants and those type of things. The match on those is 50%. So I mean, even matching that is a huge ask, right? So I know it's something that WYDOT's looking at all the way up to our executive staff. You know, how can we fund that, and how can we do it in a way that doesn't take the dollars off of our other roads and our other priorities? So in terms of when it'll happen, it's really hard. It's all just predicated on funding, and I wish I had a better answer. It'll be a huge project if it happens, if and when.
Councillor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Shields. Something that was alluded to by the district engineer Tarango, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Could you speak to the implications of the expiration of the federal highways bill as that comes up in 2026 in September, I think? And considering the disproportionate funding from federal dollars to state versus the nationwide average, like what that would mean if for some reason that was not renewed, because I think we will want to be thinking at a local municipal level about like what sort of legislative advocacy might be required in making sure that that funding stays consistent.
Yeah, I'll let Ralph answer that one.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough one there. As you know, they don't pass highway bills. They usually have continuing resolutions, and that's who knows what's going to happen with what's going on now in Washington D.C. But you know, I really don't know where we'd get any money from the shortfall from that. I think we'd have to go to the legislature, and they would have to fill the pain on our roads if we didn't get the additional funding. I can say there is like a 5-state consortium with the smaller states that are kind of fighting to at least maintain what we have. And right now with the leadership we have in Washington D.C., I think they're senior leaders, and they're doing a good job for us to maintain that funding.
Commissioner Gosar.
Thank you, Mayor. Ralph or Ryan, I'm not sure who this goes to. As you build more miles of roads, that also requires more maintenance of those roads. In a diminishing budget and purchase value, how do you figure that out? How do you decide what can be built and what can't be built, even though they both maybe should be built?
Well, I think like Ryan mentioned earlier, was that we really don't have any capacity increase projects unless it's a critical safety issue. And so we're kind of minimizing the extra roadway that we do have out there right now. You know, I could tell you our maintenance guys, because really you're talking about maintenance of the road. And so our maintenance guys right now, they have to figure out how to plow more lanes with the personnel they have. And so they're not giving us any more personnel to maintain the roads we have. We just have to figure out priorities. And maybe if we have a bunch of lanes, we have to look at level of service on the different roads we have. And right now our level of services for like I-80 and I-25 and 287 South, it's the high level of service. We have 24/7 service out there. For our other roads, we have probably 16 hours of service out there, and we just don't have the people to keep 24/7 on all of our roads. So we'd have to look at level of service, I would think, on them roads if we ever added any.
Thank you. I was just thinking about the 287, the lanes that were anticipated about being added. And Mayor, the follow-up, please. Yeah, if unforeseen, I don't know, thing happens somewhere in our district or somewhere else that causes $10-50 million fix right then, a bridge washes out or whatever, how do you account for that in the STIP, or does it happen completely outside the STIP?
So, Ms. Mayor, so we did have that situation happen up in Teton County. So we did apply for federal grant for that, and they funded a lot of that Teton slide that we had up in Teton County. And that's what I would assume that we would have to do again if this happened. The only other option that we would have would be not to let projects that we have in the STIP, because we have all of our funding dedicated to projects for the money we have. So we could not let projects in order to fix critical issues.
Thank you. Councillor Newman.
Kind of have a subject change that we've seen on Facebook, the no turn signs on 3rd Street. Could you clue us in where those came from, if there were studies done, why they're up, and those kinds of things?
Absolutely. And we did perform studies on 3rd Street, and we looked at the peak hour volumes. And you guys know as much as anybody, when you go down 3rd and someone's turning left during peak hours, then you're trying to, and it creates a conflict when you're trying to merge in with the other lane. And another thing that happens is that queue gets way backed up, and sometimes it goes into the other intersection. And so what we did is we had traffic counts out there to see when the best times, and we minimized the time that we have it out there. I think Mr. McCourt's the traffic engineer, and he knows more about this stuff than I do, but what they did was they looked at them peak hour volumes, and they said, well, between 12 and 2 o'clock during the day is when we're going to have that issue. And then from 4:30 to 6 o'clock is when we have them issues out there. And really it's a safety issue. And it, to me, being out there too, it's kind of convenient. It's almost easier to go to the next intersection to turn around to get where you need to go. But there were studies done, and that another thing is it's very adjustable, so we can continue to keep our eyes on that and adjust them timeframes as needed. I don't know if you guys noticed, but they used to have them on weekends, and then we said, no, we don't think we need them on weekends.
Thank you. Councillor Freed.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Bob's question to Councillor Newman's. Can you describe, and maybe it's a question for Jackson, but how that's, I know you guys have a lot of processes. You do the studies, it justifies doing it, and so then you implement projects. Is there a way that that's communicated to the public, besides meetings like these, or things that seem to be big time things? The whole 3rd Street project there's a lot of eyes on it. Same with those turn signals now. Is there a way that we would have a reference to say, hey, here's why YDOT's doing this, in a reasonable amount of time to share with the public? Does that happen somewhere and I just don't know yet?
Yeah, I'll have it right.
And Taylor can speak to it too, but those particular signs, I know years ago there was a collaborative effort done for a study, that 321 3rd Street project. So that was the city, YDOT, the Downtown Alliance, and a bunch of stakeholders. Those left turn signs were one of the recommendations from that group. So it's been in there, I don't know when that was done, 2012 or something. So it's been there a long time. I think we did our best when we flipped them on to communicate that a little bit ahead of time, but it was something that had stakeholder input, years and years ago. And as Ralph said, it was a safety treatment primarily. So
Thank you.
oh, for the notifications.
Yeah, and I did send out a press release ahead of time. So usually we like to send out a press release at least a week in advance, which is what we did in that case. And if there are projects or people who want to know ahead of time, I can put you on an email list, whoever with the town would want to know when these sorts of things come up, and we can notify you ahead of time. But yeah, we usually do a press release at least a week ahead.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Huff.
Good evening, Ralph. I have a follow-up to Commissioner Gosar's question. Are you anticipating any reductions of service on any other county roads, or not county roads, but roads in the county due to staffing levels or funding, like for instance, the Highway 230, no nighttime operations or snow removal?
So our level of services are on our website, and we don't plan to change any of them at that time. Of course, there is a lot of turnover in Whiteout, so we have to prioritize our forces in them cases. But so 230 doesn't get plowed at night. It's a 16-hour road, so but they're from 4 o'clock to 4 in the morning to 6 at night or something like that. And so really we don't have nighttime plowing on that already, but we're not planning on reducing the level of service on that or any others.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually going to circle back to the funding thing because it's quite concerning to me when I think about this. So I would love to know, and I don't, maybe this is everyone. So typically, how would we find funding for, let's say, that big 287 project? Would that be SPIT and federal? And what would be all of the sources that we might seek?
So I think there's basically 3 different fundings we can have. We'd have state, federal, and then legislative special funding for something like that is what I'm thinking right now. You know, if we made it a federal job, it'd be our normal 90-10 split. So it'd be 90% federal and 10% state. But there isn't any additional funding for that at this time. So we'd have to get some sort of funding from the legislature, I would think.
Can I follow up? So the federal funding that we would typically get right now is that is going to expire at the end of this year if the feds don't figure their act out.
Yes, the federal highway bill expires at the end of this year.
Okay, so then in thinking about that and thinking that you all would lose some funding and recognizing that you would be kind of pulling back some of that local funding that we are currently reaping the benefits of. Thank you very much. And thank you for advocating for 287. That's huge. It just makes me really think that we need to, and I'm sure staff is thinking about this already, but how do we plan for that in the future? How do we save for things that we've typically been able to I wouldn't say easily, but it's accessible, at least a lot of that funding. And so while you all are thinking of it at the state level, I think we really need to be thinking about it at the county level too, and planning far in advance. There's no question to that. Just the thoughts in my mind. Sorry. Thanks.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Ralph, this is a pat on the back for everybody, but I thought the underpass for the railroad at Pete Lane and the work that you guys did over the top and how smoothly that went, at least from a driver's perspective, because I was across that road many, many times this summer. And I was just really impressed with how well that was. And there was never any holdups when I was there. And I thought you did a great job. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, we appreciate that. And we appreciate the partnership that we had with Pete Lean because they did an excellent job and they funded that whole project.
I just want to piggyback on that and to say I received a lot of positive feedback from constituents about 3rd Street, the information, how well it went out. I think that the public meeting that you had really set the tone. I was present at that meeting. I believe Councilor Lockhart was there. And we were given contact cards to give to people. And I just got a lot of feedback about the communication and how positive that was, and that it really helped people. And that was a massive job. And it really looks good. And thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the work our crews do out there in the field.
I see no further questions or comments. Thank you. Now I'll go to, is there any public comment on this agenda item?
Mayor, we have a hand raised from Nancy Goodman. Or
Hello, I'm at another meeting right now. But something I learned when I was in the Army is if you want it to be congratulatory, make sure you do it in public to say thank you. I want to thank you for that little piece of sidewalk at the south end of the thing and for slowing the traffic down. Thank you very much. And now I'm hoping you will lengthen for a few seconds the crossing at Ivinson. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Sindelar. I appreciate it. You have an interesting phone name. Are there any other public comments? Well, okay. Thank you very much for your presentation, for your time tonight. It's a lot to think about. And I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we're going to finish by our little check-in and doing the agenda. Would you all like to leave?
Telling us to get out of here.
No, we'll take 5 minutes. Updates. Counselor Newman? Counselor Freed?
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, some updates from last work session. On Wednesday the 14th, Parks, Trees, and Rec Board met at 6:30 at the Rec Center. We heard presentations for the community partner funding. And then we were supposed to have a special meeting the next Wednesday, the 21st, last Wednesday, but we did not have quorum. So Director Bork has rescheduled a meeting for the second week of February, I believe the 11th, where we will hopefully have a quorum and be able to evaluate those presentations and submissions and then make a recommendation to council and the Albany County Rec Board for funding. On Thursday, January 15th, we had Planning Commission interview. So Mayor Cumby, Councilor Lockhart, and I participated in that interview for a candidate. Man, some really good candidates for that planning commission positions. A couple more updates, then I'm done. On Thursday, the 22nd, the Ranch Advisory Commission had a special work session. The city manager was there and did a fantastic job fielding questions about ongoings in the ranch, potential solar projects going on out there. About 2 hours of a whole bunch of really invested community members, some of the solar engineers that could develop there, and some of the ranch folks. And it was a great conversation. And that was on the 22nd. And then on the 23rd, we had our work session, 23rd and 24th, and set our goals. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Behill.
Mayor, I feel a little useless going after that. I do not have updates this week. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor. Really, the only updates are blocking off some time for, like Councilor Freed said, Park, Trees, and Rec Board interviews on Friday and Monday in February. And then there are some upcoming trainings for police advisory. I sent those a little bit ago. I will send them again. I'm doing firearms training with them on Friday, if anyone wants to join that.
Okay. Councilor Lockhart.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councilor Freed said, you and I and him did the 3 interviews for Planning Commission, which was all of them very highly qualified. So I hope we can find spots for all of them on boards and commissions. So, and then the Planning Commission meeting yesterday had to be, the subject had to be postponed because the issue at hand was a variance and their survey was not stamped by a Wyoming engineer. So it was 15 minutes. So that was it. So,
all right.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended a beautification committee meeting. I guess that would be last week, and pretty short meeting. They just reviewed, where lights were with downtown. So there is lighting on a lot of downtown buildings on 3rd Street right now. They're kind of moving. They're trying to think about ways to make those a little more bright, but that was about it for that meeting. Also had a Pilot Hill meeting. They are, I don't know if you have been that direction, but a lot of the work has been done at the end of Willett. They have got the shelter up. They've got some of the rocks and the sign holders in place. So it's really cool. It's coming along very, very nicely. They are continuing to think about how to be sustainable into the future, and we'll be having going back to the new rest kind of area thing. They'll be having a celebration of that this summer, postponing that just a little bit because everything didn't quite get done in the fall as they had hoped. And then my notes are out of order, so I can't recall if I have one other. Don't think I do. I think that is it.
Thank you. Councilor O'Doherty.
I'm ashamed to admit that I missed the Community Juvenile Services Board meeting yesterday because I'm terrible at calendaring, but I can try to find out what we need to know. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Shumway.
Several of us met and discussed the celebration for the 250-year celebration, and we've got many plans we're working on. I think we're getting up and going, and it should be a great celebration.
Thank you. And we had the vice mayor and the city manager and I had the quarterly meeting with the president, and that went well. The planning interviews, and we really did have 3 fabulous candidates. And I will tell you, our final candidate, I did have Ryan follow through and give him the information about the budget advisory committee. So I did follow through on that. A number of us attended the West Side Registry Plaque Celebration at the Lincoln Center on Friday the 16th. And I thought it was just going to be, you know, like in and out, a few minutes. They had 3 historians that gave stories about things over there. It was most interesting. They served snacks and everybody hung out later. It was packed. It was a great turnout. Then we had our Town and Gown met Friday the 23rd, and Wyotech gave a presentation about some of the things that they're doing in student affairs and some of the plans for growth. They presented that to the entire group. And Ryan O'Neill, who's in student services, is taking on some leadership from Wyotech with Town and Gown. And then this Thursday, we'll be having the College Pad demo, which is an app for rentals. And the other thing that we've been working on in Town and Gown is a guide for renters. And we have found one that ASUW's put together. I found a second one from the College of Ag that talks about Wyoming, legal rights, laws, etc. And then while I was doing these searches, I found a number of resources and have been gathering those. So we plan to get together and have a work session of about 4 hours where we cull everything that we've gathered and create a guide. Yes, it'll be good. We've been talking about it for 2 years, and we're going to do it now. Then we had the retreat, which I thought was very productive, and Nancy is working on kind of a summary presentation, like, what did we do anyway? You know, sometimes you get right in the middle of the forest and you have to get up on a rock or a tree to see where you are. And so I really appreciate your efforts in doing that. And I look forward to our final session when we do kind of pull it all together. But I thank all of you for your participation and your thoughtful ideas and everything that you put into that session. I thought it was good. And tomorrow there's LCBA. And on Friday, we will be having the Albany County Housing and Land Trust retreat, yet another one. So at least it's only 4 hours. And that's it for me. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I forgot one thing. Downtown Development Authority met as well. And just a heads up to folks that in March, the planning group that was hired will be hosting kind of a downtown takeover to gather all the feedback of folks of what they want to see the downtown, like the vision of what they would like to see happen down there. So I will try to remind you of that again, but just keep that on your radar.
So shall we go to agenda review? And it looks like it could be a nice little quick session. Take a look at content at the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody wishes to move? Oh, y'all want to go through cemetery deeds?
No, Mayor, but I do have a question, maybe for City Clerk. I know we had talked at the retreat about potentially having like a mayor's announcement in our agenda. We had to pass that, so that's not going to be in here.
Yeah, since we haven't reviewed through you, Mayor, sorry. Since we haven't reviewed a resolution to put that in place yet, we haven't scheduled it yet on the agenda.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So when Nancy's working on capturing our process that we went through right now, and I really think that was wise to get it while it's fresh. And then she'll work on the revisions that we made to the procedure and rules of conduct. And then we'll vote on those, and then we'll have the mayor's comments. Very good. So anything that you want changed? So nothing on the consent. Are there any questions on the regular? Thank you very much. And those were some really good questions that you all asked tonight. So we are adjourned.
I've got, sorry, a real quick offer. Oh, it's being honored. So just congrats.